I'm sitting here today, busy enough with some other things. I'm not in a shirt and tie. I've got other things, physical stuff to be working on, and but I wanted to take a minute or two and get our morning moments video out, and I just wanted to talk about some of the things that are turning our nation the wrong direction, and of course we all understand. The quote you've heard recently, elections have consequences. Well, of course they have consequences. But so does our daily living. So does the way we treat our boys and our girls. And I remember seeing an old picture, the drawing of the 50s style, cartoonist kind of thing. And there's a mom reaching down at an old-fashioned oven. She's got a pretty dress on, and little girl in her cute little dress standing next to her, and the little girl says, "Mom, I think I might be a boy." And her mom says, "Well, you're not, so stop it." That's just how things were done. Parents were literal. Parents insisted, and parents told kids what they would and wouldn't do, and where they would and wouldn't go. And we're in a different age, and we need strength, and we need courage, and we need tenacity for the things that are right. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. We need things that will help us. And so I'm gonna be in Luke chapter 2 in a minute. But before I got there, I'm thinking back to our month of October. Ed Lorena, 45 years pastoring the Bible Baptist Church in San Pedro Laguna, I think it is, in Manila. And what a great church. And I've been there many times, and it consistently grows. It is consistently reaching people, starting new churches. It didn't die when he turned 50 or when he turned 60. His brother, they're fairly close to the same age. I'm not even sure who's older, but his brother's got a church of equals. I run in thousands. Great big church. Totally different personality, as the brothers are different. But great churches, great men. And there's a need for great men. There's a need for great leadership. And but I want to read just a word or two. This is Pastor Mike Ray compiled these stories. If they can make it, you can too. Some of them are stories of tragedy, and some of them are just stories of victory. I'm just going to read this real quick. It's about Charles Finney. Charles Finney, it says 500,000 people were brought to Christ during his ministry. He was used of God as an evangelist, revivalist, and president of Oberlin College. He was a lawyer and converted when he was 29 years of age. He was married 3 times. Each of his wives passed away. He held a revival in a town of 10,000 where 1,000 people were saved. While holding crusades, he would walk into mills and invite workers to the meetings. And without saying a word, conviction would fall upon the employees. People would cry out to God for salvation. Finney's autobiography is nothing short of amazing. His lectures on revival are classics. He said, and this is interesting to me as we think about the month of October that has passed. We started out with Ed Lorena. We went to Mike Johnson, Terry Angel, and Jerry Ross, these 3 great pastors, each of them 35 to 45 years in the ministry, and then finishing the month with Dennis Coral, evangelist of about 45 years in evangelism. Great men, and men who believe God could do some things, and that there's not only some great men and some great churches, but there's great potential. And he said, Finney says this: a revival is nothing else than a new beginning of obedience to God, and that is such a great need in our churches. Where finding faithful church members, choir members, Sunday school teachers, people who play instruments, people who work in the different areas of ministry, that they get a renewed spirit of obedience to God. Once he was speaking at a church and he'd been traveling so much he forgot the name of the church, and while he was preaching, he was struggling, trying to think of the name of the church he was in, but he just preached his sermon, or the name of the town he was in. He just preached a red-hot sermon on the sins of Sodom and how Lot had this terrible testimony. Conviction and revival came after the service. People asked him how he knew what he asked, and they told him that their town was so wicked, people called the town Sodom, and one of their church leaders was named Lot. He became an instructor in revivals, president of Oberlin College, said that New York, in the revival there, had over 100,000 people saved just in that one revival. In 1875, he went to heaven. Now, revival, a renewed obedience, a spirit of submission and obedience to God. And we don't have revival because of our self-will, because we want it our way. We want to be treated the way we want to be treated. And primarily with God, we don't want anybody treating us in a way that is not how we think we should be treated, including God. Yet Romans 12 says to present your body living sacrifice. We're to be available to God for anything he wants. If he needs a Job to suffer physically, unjustly, that's the plan. That's okay, because we're presenting ourselves to God. If God needs a Daniel to have his whole world crumble and him to be carried off into slavery, it's okay because we've surrendered to God. Or a Joseph to be betrayed by his brothers and hated and sold into slavery and betrayed by someone who served faithfully, thrown into prison unjustly. If God needs someone to go through that, then it's okay because we've presented our bodies living sacrifice to God. Now, all of that to say that God is not unable to work. The prophet wrote, God's hand is not short that it can't save. His arm's not short that he can't save. His ear heavy that he cannot hear. But our sins have separated between us and our God. And we took the month of October to talk about old-fashioned preaching, old-fashioned standards and convictions, old-fashioned holiness, old-fashioned soul winning and Bible believing, to have a church that's rooted in the fundamental philosophies of old-time Christianity, old-time religion, if you want to use that phrase, and I'm all for it. And we sure need God. Now, I want to take a minute or two and see who I can offend today. Luke 2:52, talking about Jesus, and this is when he came back from, he's gone from his parents for a while, and when they finally found him, Mary said, don't you know we were searching for you? And he said, wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? It's about verse 50 or so, 49. My Father's business. He was picking up the baton at 12 years old of his heavenly Father's business, not his earthly father's business. But he goes back in verse 51, and he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. And here's the text, verse 52, Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men. Jesus was at 12 years old. He was strong and capable and independent enough, though he worried his parents. He went back into the families. They'd been there for the Passover or Pentecost, one of the feast days, and people were going back. They'd travel in groups, family, friends, relatives, and from Nazareth, probably east to the Jordan River, down the Jordan River, and then west, the Psalms of Ascent. You'll see that word in the book of Psalms, ascent, as they ascended up to Jerusalem. And then, of course, going home, they go from Jerusalem down to Jordan, back north, and then west up to the hills beyond Galilee to Nazareth, and where many, of course, people be along the way. They'd join him along the way, and then they'd be dropping off, going to their different homes. But at 12 years old, Jesus went back into town, and he spent some time there with the religious leaders. Where did he sleep? Where did he get food? What did he do when he wasn't questioning, answering, and asking questions to the religious leaders? And, you look at this passage, and I think about my upbringing, and I think about my family as, and again, I'm not saying my family was perfect. I'm not saying that you ought to do what our family did, but I remember my mom and my natural father, we would go camping at a lake up not too far outside of the Southern California area, and it was common that the adults, they worked hard. They just hung out around the campsite, talking and visiting with family. That might have been 2-3 different families there, and the kids, we had liberty. We'd take our fishing poles and go down to the lake, and we'd go fishing. We'd spent more time picking up lures and things when the water was down, because It was Lake Isabella had been flooded. It had been a city, and then they figured it out, flooded it up. So there's trees and things, and always lures stuck in branches and things. And when the water got low, then you could get out there. We would spend all day. And I don't know how old I was, but I'm sure it was before I was 10 years old, probably 7, 8, 9 years old. And that was common. In the evenings, we'd be gone for hours and hours and hours. They wouldn't know where we were, somewhere around the lake. Nobody threatened us. Nobody made us wear a life jacket. We weren't going swimming. I think I don't know if they would have warned us to not go swimming. I don't remember going swimming without an adult there. We might have. I don't think so. But in the evenings, people would sit around, and we'd walk into a little tiny town. There was a little miniature golf course, and we'd go to miniature golf course, me and whoever, cousins, brother, whoever, 2, 3, 4 young people, all preteens. We'd go hiking. There's hills. We'd go up during the day. We'd go up hiking, just the kids. And I look back and think, I'm so thankful my parents did not hover over me so much that I didn't have a chance to grow up and to experience things. And I'm so thankful that I had a chance to make decisions, right or wrong, foolish or not foolish. I remember in that same era before my dad left, and so that's how I can kind of date things, but we were young, and I remember us taking our bow and arrows and our BB guns. We'd walk maybe, I'm going to say a couple of miles down the streets, residential streets, and go out into these fields near where my cousins lived. And they just hundreds, maybe thousands of acres of open fields. We'd go out there looking for rabbits or whatever. I remember us seeing a rattlesnake among the rocks. We broke so many arrows trying to shoot that rattlesnake, shooting into those rocks, kept breaking the tips off the arrows. And finally we killed that rattlesnake, and we brought the rattlesnake home. And of course, my parents weren't real excited about that. But I remember us being out there and shooting rabbits and running around. And we had a measure of liberty. Well, my dad left, and a couple years later, junior high age, 8th grade, I'm going to say is 8th grade, my mom was working many hours. And during the summertime when school's out, I would meet my friends. And again, I've never looked at mileage, but we would meet up at 6 in the morning on our bicycles, 8th grade, summer after 8th grade year. And we'd meet on our bicycles, and we'd ride our bikes several hours over the mountains. And if I probably should have looked it up before I was going to mention this, but we lived in a little town called Thousand Oaks, and we'd ride over the mountains, over Decker Canyon and Malibu Canyon Road over to Malibu Beach, or the various beaches along the coast there. And I don't even know how many miles it was. It was a long ways. And no lunch, no money, no water bottles. And I remember, sometimes we'd pick up soda bottles. You get 3 cents a bottle. And each of us, 3, 4 of us on bicycles, we'd get some bottles. And we'd go to the store and get our 3 cents, pull it together. And then we'd buy maybe a little thing of ice cream. That's what we'd eat. We'd be gone all day. And I remember stopping there's a park about halfway to the beach. And if you wanted something to drink, you go over to the sprinklers, always water and sprinkler, and just suck the water right out of the sprinkler head. And I know so right now you're thinking, oh, disgusting. I'm alive and had a great life. And we'd go to the beach, just as kids, no adults there, and we'd swim and play. And I remember seeing who could swim out to the end of the pier. We're not just talking about wading. We would swim out to the end of the pier. Because I remember one time I was out there at the end of the pier, and I got stung by a jellyfish. Hit my shoulder and my elbow, my knee, and my ankle. And I didn't know if a jellyfish paralyzed you, made you pass out or whatever. I never swam so fast in my life. I wanted to get on. If I was going to die, I wanted to die in the dirt. I didn't want to die and be eaten by sharks. And I swam in and found out a jellyfish, at least that jellyfish, is like a bee sting. It was no big deal. But and then in the evenings, we'd ride back over, get back at dark. And you might think that was reckless parenting or not, but we learned independence. We learned to make decisions. And Jesus, at 12 years old, he was already independent. He was already making decisions. And over in 1 Samuel, when King Saul was in trouble, an evil spirit from the Lord came on King Saul. In 1 Samuel 16, they were looking for some help for King Saul, and one of King Saul's servants said, "Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse." I think there's 8 sons, 6 or 8. a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite. And this is how this servant described him: cunning and plain. So he's trained in music. A mighty, valiant man. That means he was capable of fighting. And then a man of war. That means he had been fighting. He's the youngest brother, so young that when the brothers all went to battle with Goliath, he wasn't taken. He was left behind with the sheep. And he was a young man, probably early teens, maybe not even a teenager yet. But already he knew how to fight. I wonder how many of our 12-year-olds know how to fight. And it's not our culture. It's not the world we're in. But if somebody comes into your house, somebody grabs your daughter and tries to drag them into a car or something, somebody better have taught these kids how to defend themselves at least a little bit. A man of war. And then he says in verse 18, he continues, a prudent in manners. This guy, he had a reputation of prudence, careful actions, prudence, thoughtful actions, thinking through things, knowing the end result of things. A comely person. He was good looking. And the Lord was with him. Already at this young age, people knew David knew God. Now, I just want to throw the challenge out today. When have our children, when have your children ever had to make a decision on their own? When have they ever had to face a do I, don't I? When have our children ever had to face biting their lip and getting up and going on when they want to cry or quit? When have our children faced something hard, something difficult, something that made them want to buckle under the pressure, but they went on? When have they had the liberty to make a decision between right and wrong? I remember around the corner from us, one of our family in our church, their son was a couple years older than our oldest, Josh, and it was Christmas time. And I found out that there was a kind of a Christmas shuttle, an open air bus sort of a thing, shuttling to the various stores. And I talked to the parents. I said, what would you think about your son and our son just getting on that thing, going down to the next town, to actually 2 towns away, Marietta and then Temecula, and just going around the mall, seeing what's going on at Christmas time, riding back. I wanted our boy to get out on his own, where he had to make his own decisions, say, no, I'm not going there, and okay, I'll do that, but I'm not doing that. And with the influence of an older boy, and their parents were fine with it, great friends of ours, and so we just stuck the boys on there and sent them out. And somewhere, our young people, especially our young men, have got to learn independence. They've got to learn responsibility. They've got to learn accountability, accountable for their behavior. We've got to, I'd send our kids on a trip, maybe a sporting event or whatever. They're going to, school basketball team or whatever. Maybe the kids are going to a youth conference somewhere for the night, and they need some food money. All right, here's your $5 or whatever for food money. And here's your 20. Put that in the back of your wallet. That's if there's an emergency and you need it. So you've got some extra money. Bring it back. And I want to make sure they knew how to know there was money in their wallet and not spend it. When do we give our kids responsibilities? By the time our boys and girls were junior high, they could do a better job washing our car than the car wash. Now, somebody had to teach them, but then somebody had to walk away and leave them out there to do the job. Responsibility. Jesus at 12 years old got along for 3 days in Jerusalem without his mom and dad. David was left with the sheep and a bear came along. He killed the bear. A lion came along. He killed the lion. He didn't go running to his dad. He didn't go running to his big brothers. He did what needed to be done. And we are in trouble in America, especially in the area of young men, because young men are not learning independence. They're not learning grit and tenacity. They're not learning to just grind their feet into the ground and say, I'm not going to give on this thing, and I'm going to do this, or I won't do that, and to say no to things. We've got to develop in our boys, especially in our boys. Our girls ought to have it too, but we've got to develop our young people. As soon as sports started in our school at junior high, our boys played sports, but I also made sure that our boys had some martial arts training. And our oldest, Josh, we had a couple of men in the church that would meet with the boys, and they'd meet once a week, and a group of young men, and they'd train. What do you do when someone grabs you? What do you do here? We didn't have anyone doing that by the time my youngest was around. I took him with me to a place called Front Sight. It's closed now. It's open something different now, but in those days we were members, and I went to a part of the training for guns, and I paid the way for one of our men who already had some martial arts training to go with my youngest to go over there and to be trained hand to hand. One day of just hand to hand, and one day hand to knife. Somebody has that coming at you with a knife. What do you do? Why would I spend money on those kind of things? Because my sons are now married, and my daughters are married. But if somebody comes after one of my boys' children or one of my boys' wives, I want them to know what to do. And we've got. I heard somebody just recently. I think it was Dennis Coral when he was here. He said our boys don't know how to get their hands dirty. They don't know how to get along with their shirt untucked. They certainly don't know how to work and sweat, get their hair messed up. And we've raised up in our churches this second generation Christians, this group of cute little boys who are just model. I don't want a cute little boy. I want a tough kid. I want a boy that's strong enough to say no when he's tempted. I want a boy who's strong enough like Joseph to run when that forward woman, that proverb says Proverb 6, the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. There are women out there satanically guided to hunt down good men. It's nothing to get a bad man to fall. They're looking for a good man to destroy. And we've got to teach our boys to say no. We've got to get our boys in a circle. Our kids got to be alone. Our kids have got to have the opportunity to go somewhere, do something. And I love one of the men. He's moved out of the area now, but my oldest son worked for him, and he had a driver's license. Our son did. But I didn't have anything with a clutch. And so he never learned to drive a stick shift before. But he's working with this man. And I'm so thankful for the men that invested in my boys as well. But one summer he's working. He needed something picked up. I want to say it's San Diego, but it's quite a ways down. And he tossed him the keys to their little company truck or whatever it was. And my son had never driven with a clutch before. And the guy said, you'll figure it out between here and there, and let him go. Thank God for a man who was pushing a young man to being responsible, to making decisions. I remember as a sophomore in high school, a boy at school, and I was new in the area. We just moved the end of my freshman year, really days after my sophomore year started. My parents moved from Southern California, a school of 3 or 4,000, to a town of 2,000, little school of 200. And we're there. Fall school opens in September. And, November hunting season opens. And one of the boys said, hey, Bruce, you want to come hunting with me? We'll go deer hunting. I'd never hunted deer before. I'd shot guns a lot. Our family had firearms, and I knew safety. But the boy's dad, we were both sophomores, so we're 15 years old. And the dad, I'm not even sure how I got to him, but anyway, the dad took his son and me, drove us way back up in the mountains, dropped us off, said, I'll see you this evening, and left us there. We didn't have any food, and we might have had a canteen, I don't know. But I'm so thankful for my parents that took that step back and said, go ahead, you've got to become a man. You've got to face some decisions. And there I was, walking these hills with a British 308 or a 303 hunting rifle over my shoulder. And we only saw one deer the whole day, and it was a doe, and we could only shoot bucks. But we hunted and wandered for miles and miles, and somehow we ended up back where the boy's dad was going to pick us up. But my parents allowed me to develop manliness. And I remember my our PE teacher in the high school. I was a new kid, sophomore year in high school, and there's somebody picking on me. I had a really dark tan and long sun-bleached blonde hair from living at the beach, and I'm up in a mountain community where all the boys were, not all, but a lot of them were rednecks, and they rode bulls, and who's going to strap themselves to a 1,200-pound bull? That's crazy. But they weren't soft guys. They were good, strong, young men. But I don't know, this guy got something in for me, wanted to cause me trouble. And PE we had that last period of the day, because the people who were in the sports program, we went right into practice, whether it be football or I didn't do football, but during that season, the guys played in basketball. We went and stayed for practice right after school. And this kid just harassed me. I mean, in front of the whole group. We're in the gym, whatever we're playing, and he'd throw ugly comments, and I just avoided it. My parents didn't raise me to be a brawler, and I don't look for fights. I don't like a fight. But I know some people do, and I'm not against that, but that's just not me. But the PE teacher, he came over to me, never forget, Cliff Freer. He said, Bruce, if you don't stand up to that guy and stop it, he will badger you all year long. And I thought, okay, got the okay from the teacher. And so it was basketball season, so I didn't need to change. He played varsity football. He was 2 years older than me, and he went in to shower and get changed. And so I'm outside the gym door with the okay of the teacher. The teacher was nowhere to be found. He left. He knew something was going to happen. And I'm standing outside that gym door, and the guy walked out, and I said, "Let's settle this now." And we were just this close to each other, and he took a step back. I said, "Right now, we're going to settle this." And he stepped back. He said, "Bruce, I'm on probation. If I get another fight, I'm going to go to juvenile hall." He said, "Look, let's just drop this." And all of a sudden, I got real bold. "All right, well, don't let it happen again." And I was petrified of that guy. But again, a man pushing boys to settle boys' business. We got a David who killed a lion and a bear, and he was looked at for his good looks. He was musical. His parents got him some good training. He was prudent. He knew how to think. He was spiritual. God was with him. But he was tough. He was a valiant man, a man of war. Jesus increased in wisdom and stature. Wisdom, that's in here, seeing and knowing. A stature, that's physical development, and with wisdom and stature, and he increased in his relationship to God. Now, America needs some men. We are hurting, and boy, if you have a chance to influence young men for God, I urge you, use your time. We will not have evangelists like Charles Finney if we don't have some young men who can stand up and play the man. Joab said to his brother Abishai as they were surrounded, they were outnumbered, and Joab said, "You fight them, I'll fight these guys. If you need help, I'll come over. If I need help, you come over." And then he said, "Let us play the man." And if I get the order right here, he said, "Play the man for our families, for our city, and for our God," or something like that. We need some young men that know how to play the man. And America, and how are we going to get preachers in the pulpits that'll stand up for right, not bend and not compromise? We need men. Pray. You see those boys around church, pray for them. You have kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, pray for them. And if you have a chance to influence them for manliness and for strength, for courage, for tenacity. Hey, hope you have a good day. I know a lot of you aren't parents, but you can be praying for these kids. We need a generation of men to be brought up who could take a bullet and not quit. How about that? All right. God bless you. Thanks for joining us today.